Avengers Infinity War ended with the biggest downer since The Empire Strikes Back, so it's no wonder that everyone's trying to figure out what's going to happen when Thanos returns to the screen in 2019. From clues we've picked up in the comics to hints that we've already seen, here are our predictions for the possible outcomes of Avengers 4. Spoiler warning, we're going to be talking a lot about the end of Infinity War. The new Black Panther. The most shocking part of Infinity War came when Thanos snapped his fingers and killed half the universe, and it only got more surprising when it turned out that that half included heroes like Spider-Man, Bucky, Doctor Strange, and the Black Panther. Since there are about 1.3 billion reasons and counting to keep that last guy around, we're guessing that most of these deaths are probably going to be undone by the end of Avengers 4.
And as you can see, I am not dead!
Even if it's just for now, though, T'Challa's death leads to the most obvious idea for the next one, Shuri becoming the new Black Panther. With the heart-shaped herbs gone at the end of Black Panther, Shuri would be able to use her expertise and technology to step into the role. We've even seen her in action, fighting with panther-shaped energy gauntlets. All she needs is the costume. The other strong possibility would be that Nakia takes over instead, but Shuri is the one who becomes Black Panther in the comics when T'Challa is incapacitated. With Marvel Studios' track record of using elements from stories like Winter Soldier and Infinity Gauntlet as roadmaps, that seems like the one they'd want to stick with. King of the Dead. If Shuri does become the Black Panther, that leaves us with the question of what could happen with T'Challa. We're pretty sure he's going to come back to life somehow, but something in the comics gives another possibility. He might just become the King of the Dead. In the comics, T'Challa found himself conflicted after Shuri took over as the leader of Wakanda. He wanted to be Black Panther again, but he doesn't want to interfere with Shuri's reign. Obviously, he solves this problem by going to the secret necropolis under the Golden City so that he can talk to Bast, the cat goddess. You know, pretty standard cat stuff. To give him a new purpose, she made him King of the Dead, with all the strength and wisdom of every Black Panther before him. Who better to lead a team of superheroes back to the land of the living than him? Asgard Reborn. Infinity War's shocks aren't limited to the end of the movie. Right at the beginning, we find out that Thanos and the Black Order killed all the Asgardian refugees that Thor worked so hard to save in Ragnarok. That might not be the end of Asgard, though. In the comics, Ragnarok isn't the end of the world, it's the end of a cycle. As gods, Thor and the other Asgardians are creatures of mythology. They live, die, and are reborn into new forms, eternally bound by their nature. If we're following that logic, then the next major quest for a Thor who's more powerful than ever could be the rebuilding of Asgard by tracking down the reborn souls of the other gods, including an all-new, all-different Loki, the return of Korg, Meek, and Valkyrie. They couldn't really kill the three best new movie characters of 2017 off-screen between movies, could they? Until proven otherwise, let's just assume that Korg, Meek, and Valkyrie weren't on the refugee ship for some reason. Maybe they were out scouting for groceries or fighting the Skrulls. Anything to get them back for next time. Seriously, if Happy Hogan can be in like 6 of these movies, then Valkyrie needs to be in at least 10. Tony Stark, R.I.P. A lot of moviegoers predicted we'd be bidding a fond farewell to Robert Downey Jr. in Infinity War. That didn't happen this time, but it may have been set up for Avengers 4. Doctor Strange traded Thanos the Time Stone in exchange for sparing Tony Stark's life. That's surprising, first because Strange swore an oath to protect it, and second because he did it knowing that if Thanos got the stones, he was going to kill half the galaxy anyway. Even if Strange and Stark were BFFs and not just dudes who didn't actually seem to like each other, there's no way anyone should trade Iron Man's life for uncountable trillions. Unless... Shortly before that scene is the one where Strange uses the Time Stone to take a peek at 14 million alternate outcomes, and says that the good guys only win in one. Given the bargain he makes, you have to assume that the one reality where Thanos is defeated has to be the one where Tony Stark lives long enough to do something to turn the tide. We're betting it's a heroic sacrifice that's been building for 11 years. The all-new Iron Man. Tony Stark might be on the way out, but Iron Man could stick around. It's just going to be Jim Rhodes under the helmet instead. Like Shuri, this one follows the precedent set in the comics. Before he was War Machine, Rhodey was Iron Man from 1983 to 1985. It also seems like a logical continuation of the story. He's the only one besides Tony to fight in the Iron Man armor, and the big airport battle in Civil War left him injured, needing Stark's tech to walk. That puts him in a very similar position to the way Tony was back in his early comics appearances, when he needed his armor to keep his heart beating. If Rhodey does take over, that provides proof of concept for the idea that the MCU can continue after the departure of big-name actors, something that was already done on a small scale when Don Cheadle took over the role of Rhodey from Terrence Howard.
Next time, baby.
Keep waiting for Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock is a huge part of the original Infinity Gauntlet story. While his role for the most part is limited to standing around in space watching the big battle go down, he actually winds up in possession of the gauntlet itself at the end. Between that and his imminent arrival being teased in the post-credits scene of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it might have been surprising that he didn't make an appearance in Infinity War. He's even the focal point of the comic book crossover that gave the movie its name. If you're thinking they might have saved him for the sequel, though, it doesn't seem likely. One of the few movies to have actually been announced for the next phase of Marvel movies was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. With Adam being set up as Aisha's genetically engineered instrument of revenge, it's way more likely that he'll show up there. That leaves the role open for a spacefaring hero who can explain galactic conflicts, and it seems pretty obvious that it's going to go to Captain Marvel, who was summoned at the end of Infinity War by Nick Fury's cosmic beeper. That makes sense structurally, since Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp are the only MCU movies coming out between Infinity War and Avengers 4. As much as we like Scott Lang, he's not the guy who's going to be getting everyone up to speed on the Kree-Skrull War. Carol Danvers, on the other hand, has experience battling against and wielding exactly the kind of cosmic power that the heroes are going to need to beat Thanos once and for all. That leaves the Guardians free to fly back into their own movie, and the only question left is whether they'll fight Adam Warlock or the Magus, who is Adam Warlock's evil self from an alternate future. Comic books can be pretty complicated. Cap Wolf at last. We'll admit that this one's pretty unlikely, but if Infinity War has proven anything, it's that the Marvel movies can do anything and make $1 billion. They've spent 10 full years and 19 movies getting to that point, but they just put out a movie about a giant purple man trying to get his hands on magic space rocks, featuring characters like Proxima Midnight and the Collector. And a major plot point was that a space dwarf made a magic hammer out of a talking tree. We're not complaining, but you have to admit that stuff's pretty weird. Clearly, there's nothing stopping them from doing a movie where Captain America becomes a superpowered werewolf and delivers an inspirational speech to a bunch of other werewolves. It might even make sense from a movie-making standpoint. If Chris Evans really wants to scale back his acting work and devote his time to remodeling his house, then why not replace him with a CGI Wolfman with an indestructible shield? It would definitely be a weird direction to lift from the comics, but they already did the part where Thanos starts turning people into cubes. There's no way a wolf is any weird.